Yeah, let's talk about what's happening tomorrow as this election is predicted to be very, very close and people are on edge. We've got a lot to talk about. And tomorrow, just a little preview, we are going to speak to Bill Gates about elections. We are going to speak to the sheriff of Maricopa County about security. We're going to speak to election analyst Dr. O'Neill. We'll talk with him about this close race. But for everybody involved, I wonder, and I don't see things the way I saw them before. I don't think we're going to see the level of vitriol that we saw 4 years ago. I think Americans are smart enough to learn their lesson. Maybe I'm looking through rose-colored glasses. I don't see that same level of anger. It sells in the media. Let's be honest. When you have somebody on, you're going to show the most boisterous people out there. You're going to show the people that seem to be the most angry, the ones that are. But there is some of it out there. Is there not a time where we would say to both sides, knock it off? So the former president made comments about Liz Cheney and asked the question, how would she like it if she had guns pointed at her or whatever else? They tried to make that into being I didn't hear it as a threat. I've been very critical of some of the things that he says and the way he says them. But at some point, it's going to take both sides to tell both sides to knock it off. I get an email from someone who, and I've been very honest with him in his emails with me, that he seems like a very good guy. Everything I've seen of him online, he seems like a good guy. He seems like a reasonable person. He hates Donald Trump. So he emails me out of the blue every once in a while. He sent me one over the weekend. He sent me two this morning. It is really the Trump derangement syndrome of I hate this guy so much. Everything is his fault. He's calling him names. He's calling his supporters names. And I even said to him in one of the emails, you seem like a really good guy. Can you imagine another person in your life or thing that's going on in your life where you would reduce yourself down to making childish names, calling names of people? It happens on both sides. And at some point, we all have to call it out and say it needs to stop. I am someone, I don't like the way things are said. I've talked about this before. My choice for president is because given the choices, I think Donald Trump is a better choice than Vice President Harris. That's the end of it. No one can accuse me of being a blind follower. I don't like a lot of the things he says or the way he says them. I want you to hear this. This happened, I believe, on Friday. This is a very short clip of the comments that were being made. But President Biden was talking about Trump and Trump supporters. And this is what, he talked about them being fake tough guys and being tough and they think they're tough and that kind of thing. But he said this.
But I'm serious. These are the kind of guys you like to smack in the ass.
This is the president of the United States that said that. So don't tell me it's one side. I hear from people, well, Trump gets what he gives. And so he does it and people, well, he would say the same thing. I would say to everyone involved, I think we're all tired of it. We're all tired of it. I don't want to argue. People argue with me. They're going to prove to me that I'm wrong in this or that I should hate the guy. I don't hate anyone. I just had a conversation with a guy named Mike yesterday. Really a nice guy, and he knows his stuff. He's a smart man. And he said to me, I don't know where all this hate comes from. He said, I don't hate Joe Biden. I just disagree with his politics. I don't hate Vice President Harris. He even said, talking about Ruben Gallego, seems like a good guy. I just don't agree with his politics. And this is a guy that is a pretty knowledgeable conservative, been voting for probably 50 years. And I look at that and I think every conversation I have, I shouldn't say every, most conversations I have with people go in that direction, which is, I don't get all this. I don't get all this anger. I'll be honest with you. The most hate I hear are the people that hate Trump. I know there's plenty on both sides, but you can't be hateful and then accuse other people of being hateful. It's a two-way street. I have absolutely no axe to grind with, well, I'll give you an example. The Attorney General of Arizona, Chris Mays, she's been a guest on this show a number of times. The Attorney General is now investigating Donald Trump for a death threat against Liz Cheney. I laughed when I heard it. I laughed. I thought there's no way she's doing that very seriously. She came on this show and said, I'm not going to I would never enforce an abortion law because I've got important crimes to be chasing down in my office. I have really important things to do. And a comment, so there's no way that she is taking seriously an investigation into Donald Trump from her office. No way that's true. I get along very well with her. I have a lot of respect for Chris Mays. Always have. Gotten along very well with her. We don't always agree, but we've always had a good rapport. It's the disdain and the hate for other people that I genuinely don't know where it comes from. I want you to hear Race for the White House, very, very close. This is from New York Times.
It's been decades since an election has been this close, and we've seen polls this close in the key swing states that will decide the election. So it really is sort of a jump ball or a coin toss who's going to win because the polls are so incredibly tight.
Yeah, how tight these races are, a little bit of the man on the street perspective.
A new poll from the battleground states shows Harris with marginal leads in Nevada, North Carolina, and Wisconsin. Trump with a slight lead in Arizona, and even closer races in Georgia, Michigan.
My father-in-law is a lifelong Republican. You'll talk about Ronald Reagan all day. He is voting for Kamala Harris.
And Pennsylvania. In all 7 states, the races are within the poll's margin of error.
See, there was this big movement of never Trumpers in 2020, and there were a couple of reasons for that. Many people did not like the way the former president went scorched earth on the Republican Party and using the term rhino and kicking people out and went after John McCain, which I think really hurt him in Arizona. I think all of that was the case. That was one side of it. The other side of it was they saw Joe Biden as kind of a moderate. They didn't think he was going to be far left. He promised not to be far left. They thought that he said he would be a president for all Americans. And so many of those Republicans sent a message and said, I will vote for the opposition because I think President Biden, well, at the time was Vice President Biden, I think the former vice president will be a decent human being and a decent president. What we saw with record inflation and we saw record pricing for fuel, I think a lot of people have learned their lesson. I'm talking solely from a Republican perspective, that many of those never Trumpers don't like the former president any more than they did in 2020. But I don't think in good conscience, knowing what they know about the economy and how they feel about their political party, are going to do the same thing. Doesn't mean they're going to vote for Trump. Many of them will stay home or leave that one blank. I don't think there's going to be nearly as many never Trumper Republicans as there was in 2020. And I don't think President Trump is any different than he was in 2020 in a lot of ways. I just don't think they're going to vote for the policies they saw.
Thanks for watching the Mike Broomhead Show. Catch up on Amazing Arizonans, a KTAR News podcast, and click the button in the middle to subscribe.